Welcome back. This time we're talking about Mother, directed by Darren Aronofsky and starring Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem. Now, as far as this movie goes, well, I got nothing. Yeah, I really wanted to end my review there because this movie is completely disappointing in how it ends. I will freely admit it's well acted, well directed, wonderful use of set. One of the weirdest, craziest sequences I think I may have ever seen in a movie. That it's one of the closest cinematic equivalents to stream of consciousness I think I've ever seen. Unfortunately, it all builds eventually to nothing. This was a movie I wanted to see earlier, but like with it, I was delayed due to Hurricane Irma. And like that, I went with a friend of mine. And once again, we were pretty similar in our view of this movie. We liked a lot about this movie, but the story completely throws it away at the end and just sort of, just ends with a complete whimper. I have since, or actually my friend has since, looked up a deeper explanation of the symbolism behind the story. Pretty cool. I can actually, admit seeing a lot of it in retrospect, but I don't know how you could get that far with the symbolism without it being explained to you, and thus it ultimately fails. You can't have as a prerequisite finding out after the fact, oh, that's what it meant, and even taking into account the symbolism, the ending is still utterly disappointing. I actually had a guess of where it might go early on, and I was actually thinking, I really hope they don't go there because it's so hard to pull off and have a satisfying conclusion to your story. And then it went in such a completely weird and random and crazy direction. And that's the other thing. This movie is so crazy and weird and honestly enjoyable at times watching this insanity unfold, but you have to have a payoff at the end, or it's just craziness for the sake of craziness, and ultimately we never get that payoff. The story, in a quick nutshell, is essentially Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem play a married couple living in this old house that she is spending her time fixing up, while he unsuccessfully attempts to write a book of poetry to follow up his widely successful book of poetry that he had written presumably a number of years before. They are met with a guest who shows up at their house unexpectedly, played by Ed Harris. He is eventually joined by his wife, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and a bunch of other characters begin to descend on this home. And Jennifer Lawrence's character and Javier Bardem's characters, neither of which I believe are actually given a name in this movie, react to these intrusions in wildly different ways. And how they react and how they deal with this issue of these people showing up at their home is sort of the main driving force of this movie that ultimately goes nowhere. I will say, like I said earlier, the acting is great in it. I thought Jennifer Lawrence was wonderful. Javier Bardem is creepy as always, even when he's not trying to be creepy. Ed Harris has a weird kind of insanity element to his character. Michelle Pfeiffer has this real mean streak to her character, and was interesting as well. Like I said, it builds to this 20-minute or so sequence that was just, what the heck is going on? I actually uttered that, might have been a different word than heck, multiple times during this movie. The house becomes such an integral part of this movie, and the way they do the camera shots, there's a lot of tracking over the shoulder POV shots, as well as tracking reverse POV shots. There's a lot of rotating shots, and because this is an old house and the way those houses were made, every room has 2 or 3 doors. So when you're in this like sort of psychological thriller, I'm not going to call it a horror film. It's never a horror film. It's definitely a psychological mind trip of a movie. But there's a lot of tension-filled scenes, and whenever a character has his or her back to a doorway, that there's always an added level of tension. And with the doors everywhere, there's almost always a door to someone's back, and so just they did a good job of building up the tension. As I said, unfortunately, it just does not pay off at the end, and frankly, it kills the movie. I mean, I cannot really recommend this as a film to go see. I was really looking forward to this one, as such was my friend, and we both left quite disappointed. The symbolism overlaid it after the fact, having seen what apparently the symbolism was supposed to mean, does add a little bit to it, does explain a few of the things, but if this was to be a truly, completely allegorical story where all of these characters were truly supposed to be representations of symbols or elements, not necessarily people, individual people themselves, I never want to say that a film needs to hold the audience's hand more than it does, but we needed more. We just needed more in this movie. And again, even if you take into account those elements, I still think the ending just sort of it ruined it all, regardless if you believe in the symbolism or not. So this is a movie that very inventive. I give them all the credit for attempting it. I just wish they had a different ending. I wish there had been more of a payoff for all of the insanity, because the insanity, frankly, was very interesting to watch. Off-putting, definitely off-putting in a few moments. Definitely disturbing, but very interesting. It was just very interesting, and I hate that I had this 2 hours of just intriguing movie to just have no payoff. And it rarely does an ending just completely sour a movie for me, but in this case, the ending of Mother completely soured the movie for me. And I really can't recommend it, like I've already said. If you just want to go and see a weird stuff for 2 hours, and don't care as much about having a satisfying payoff at the end, yeah, check it out. If you liked his other movies, you may like it more than I have. As I said, it is divisive, which means there are people that have come out of it really liking it. So that's pretty much my review of Mother. Actually, a lot longer than I originally expected. I figured it was going to be a 10-second long video. It turns out that it's however long this video ends up being once it's edited. So that's my review of Mother. Let me know what you thought about it. I really want to know your thoughts about this movie. I always do. I always want to know your thoughts. This is one that I really, really want to know what you thought of the movie. And if you have heard of what the actual symbolism is, what are your thoughts on that? And try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other reviews, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.